it's just good old me.
Well, we're happy to have you. Good to see you.
See you too.
So we were chatting about class tonight, and we have on the gentle side some back bending. Anything that you want to add to that?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, awesome. Well, ladies, let's get started on this nice, cozy Wednesday evening. I'm going to mute us at this point, but remember, you can always unmute yourself. You ever want to ask any questions or give feedback or comments? So because we might be doing a little bit more restorative yoga, it's always nice to have some additional props. We don't need all of that, but if it's nearby, it can come in handy. So I'm gonna crawl on over to my mat. So we have the usual suspects: yoga blocks, yoga straps, folded towels, extra cushions. If you have a folded chair, that would be great. Or if you're nearby, your lazy boys, your sofa. I have two of my bigger bed pillows, your bolsters, and a folded blanket. So, like I said, we're gonna start in a restorative pose, but it's also a gentle back bending pose. And it is our gurgling creek pose. And what this will do, if we choose to put our bodies in this position, is it'll create a wave and giving ourselves a little bit more extension in the areas where we have that extension already naturally happening in our body. So if you want a little bit more, you'll use bigger pillows or you'll fold up your blanket a little higher. Our first prop will run perpendicular to our mat, and I have my chair set up where I'm going to swing my legs up on the chair. You can also just have a pillow on the floor that your knees will go over top of, again, creating this wave. I feel like I need a little bit more elevation from sitting all day at work. So this support is going to support the mid back. We'll still want our buttocks to be on the ground, and we'll want our shoulders to fall over the other end of it. So it's got to be a certain width that will suit your torso and the length of your spine. So when we come down, and that might be a blanket instead. And if you feel like you might need additional support for the head, take it in a little pillow. I like my head to fall back, again, to counter all the rounding I do all day on the computer. And you can add even more props if you have the folded chair, or like I said, you're next to a sofa. If you want to elevate the legs more, give yourself more cushion, or slide those pillows underneath the knees. So when we come down to it, I'm going to snug my pillow on the ground, right up into my low back, swing my legs onto my chair. So I'm grounded here in the hips. And then I'm going to allow my back to arch all the way over this pillow until my shoulders fall off the other end. So it might take a little bit of wiggling and releasing. And I can feel that this is a pretty big back bend for me, but because it's supported, it feels quite nice. And then cactusing the arms if you're in this bigger lift, so the elbows are bent, back to the hands fall to the floor, and that's going to give us that nice big opening across the chest. So we'll make our adjustments here. There's no hurry. Get comfortable. Readjust as needed. You want to take the weight out of the legs. Open up the front of the body. This posture does help improve our posture, countering that forward flexion, creating space through the vertebra up the spine. We'll let the weight of the head fall to the ground, finding that very back center of our skull. Closing the eyes. Poofing the cheeks with air, wiggle out that mouth, tongue, and jaw, especially if you're a jaw clencher like I am. Take a nice deep breath in and out through the nose. And on that exhale, feel the whole body sink into the ground. Begin to release any tension and tightness that our body might be holding onto from our day. So letting go of where we came from, letting go of all of our to-do lists, and giving ourselves the gift of being present for the next hour or so during our practice. So let's continue to relax the whole body, giving our body a scan from the top of the head down to those fingertips and toes. Relax the belly, the area around the hips, all the way down the arms into the hands and fingertips, all the way down the legs into the feet and toes. Let go of any expression across the face, unfurl the brow. Relax the cheeks and the lips. As usual, if we come across areas we might be taking care of, let's breathe and relax into those areas. Remembering that we each have permission to modify and adjust our practice accordingly. And now let's spread our awareness to the breath. Just observing the natural breath, spontaneously flowing in and out of the body. If we're in this elevated position, we're going to get a nice stretch through the rib cage. So we might feel the breath moving a little bit differently. But on the inhales, we should still feel that expansion, the space inside the body growing bigger. And on our exhales, we should feel a releasing, a gentle contraction as we empty the breath and exhale away any stale old air and energy. And for tonight, we'll just simply practice our Samavriti pranayama, which is our even or equal breathing. So we'll start to mentally count the breath. We're breathing smoothly in and out through the nose. And on our next inhale, we'll feel that expansion, maybe even the belly rises. And we'll mentally count the number we're breathing in. And then on our exhales, we mentally count the same number back out. This breath might start to grow a little bit longer on its own. Just try to keep the inhales and exhales equal, so we can try to add 1 or 2 counts to both sides of the breath. And then let's all cycle through one more round. And this round, we can try to make our biggest breath of our day yet. So when we get to that next inhalation, we'll breathe in through the nose. We'll fill ourselves up with as much fresh air, prana, and energy as we can. And when we can no longer sip in any more air, we will gently start to release the breath back out, exhaling every last drop and putting some effort into this exhale, drawing the belly in, squeezing and emptying the breath out. And when we've emptied the breath completely, we will let go, trying to follow and control our breath for a moment so that it wander away wherever it wants to go. We'll start to gently wake up the physical body, so giving our toes a wiggle, the fingertips, a nice little rock of the head side to side, loosening up the neck and shoulders. So again, depending where we are with our prop, some of us might be able to slide our arms even further overhead, reaching our fingertips to a back wall. If the legs are over a pillow, you can stretch one leg out at a time or float both feet up off the floor as you straighten the feet. If we're over a piece of furniture or our chair, just move mindfully. You can keep the legs rested on the lip of the chair, but point and flex the feet here. And let's all try to take one more big breath in, spread those toes, spread those fingers. On the exhale, the arms can slide down, maybe just back to where they started, a cactus pose if we're elevated. Step the feet into the edge of the furniture or towards the sit bones. So if we're elevated through our spine, we probably will not be able to pull our knees to our chest, but we'll just lift our feet up as much as possible so that we can roll off to one side. So we're gonna slowly roll to one side of our body here. Just take a quick little break. And then we're gonna press down into the ground and bring our body up. So we might need to do a little bit of rearranging with our props, especially when we're seated on the floor. If you're moving things around, engage the core, so draw those abdominal muscles in, and just make sure you're moving stuff around mindfully. It might seem like it's trivial, but those of us that have had low back issues, you know that it can just be one weird little movement that we're not really paying attention to that can kind of throw things out of whack, and we don't want to do that. But we are going to clear our space of what we don't need, and we're going to come into a seated position. So if you want to grab a extra cushion to sit on, a firmer pillow, or your yoga blocks, go ahead and do so. And then in this seated position, I want us to try to come right into Baddha Konasana tonight. So we'll sit up on our sit bones, and then we'll bring the insides of the feet to touch. So we might be a little tight and stiff, especially if we've been sitting all day like I have. Sometimes at the end of the day, we have more flexibility because it is the end of the day, so our body's a little bit warmer, we've been moving around. If the knees need additional support underside, then go ahead and give that to them. So we want to draw the feet towards each other. You can flare your toes away from each other as we press into the mound of the big toe, mound of the pinky toe, and the inner heel. We're not pushing down on the thigh bones. We're just going to let gravity kind of traction out the weight of the legs, trying to get our hips to open a little bit. We might reach towards the feet and the ankles, and some of us are really just going to work on sitting up nice and tall here, drawing in a little bit through those lower abdominals. Shoulders falling away from the ears. We'll continue with a nice smooth breath in and out through the nose. If we feel like we have some space to tip forward at the hips, we may. There's no rounding of the spine here, so don't collapse the chest forward. If anything, shine that light forward from the heart center. And again, some of you have more flexibility here than I do, so feel free to take your fingertips forward. You might even continue to walk your hands out in front of the body, bringing the belly and the heart and head towards the ground. You're welcome to go there if it's an option for you tonight. Do continue to draw in through those lower abdominals. We're going to hold for about 2 more nice deep breaths, just getting those hips to open up a little bit here. And then on our inhale, especially if you've walked yourself a little further down, take your time, walk your hands back towards the body, restack the spine, 1 vertebra at a time. We'll bring our fingertips behind us, slide our feet forward and bring our feet wider than our hips at this point, and just give them a little windshield wiper action side to side. And then we're going to take a wide version of Janu Shirshasana. So we'll slide our heels out into Upavishta Konasana, our wide angle stance. Now we're not trying to do the splits here. We're just opening our legs in a nice natural wide stance. Our knees should be pointing up towards the ceiling. Flex your feet back towards your shin bones. So if your knees or toes are collapsed in, put a little bit more energy into those outer thighs, draw the belly in. Now, if you are really high up off the ground, we want to make sure our knees aren't hyperextending. So you may need to bring in your blankets, your rolled blankets or towels, whatever you might have underneath the knee joint so the knees don't hyperextend. Same thing, where we're going to start before Janu Shirshasana is just lengthening up through the spine. And then we're going to draw our right heel in towards the pubic bone. Now the sole of the foot might be grazing the inner thigh. If your thigh is a little higher up, it won't quite be there. But you can draw the heel towards that pubic bone. And again, today, we're not going to turn towards that left leg. We're going to keep our body facing forward. And we might be able to walk our fingertips forward here. So we're getting a big stretch up the inner thigh back of the left leg, a little bit of hip opening in the right side. Both sit bones should be equally weighted down towards the ground. Some of us might find that we have a little bit more mobility here, but the body should be moving towards, if you're going towards the ground, equally. So we shouldn't be sinking to our right side or left side. Keep that left foot nice and active, so the toes should still be pulling back towards the body. And those of you that have gone a little further into it, elbows, forearms, wherever you want to take it tonight. And again, about 2 more breaths. Nice stretch for the low back. On our next inhale, we'll start to bring the body up. Draw that low belly in, walk your hands in, restack the spine, sitting up nice and tall. Go ahead and re-extend that right foot out, Upavishta Konasana. We should be in a nice symmetrical pose, both feet active, knees pointing up. Other side, bring that left heel in front of the pubic bone. The sole of the foot might graze the inner thigh, be slightly below it. Sit up tall, we're hinging at the hips. Keep your right foot active. We might have some space to bow forward. Keep both sit bones equally weighted. Try not to sink into one hip or the other. You're moving straight forward. So this is a little different version. Janu Shastra does mean head to knee pose, where our legs are in that position, but we're bringing our upper body forward. Keep drawing in through that low belly to protect the back. And about 2 more breaths on this side. Same thing, when we get to our next inhale, we'll take our time to walk our hands back to restack that spine so that we're sitting up nice and tall. We'll re-extend that left heel out, coming back into seated angle pose. Both legs are active, low belly is pulled in. And then take just a gentle bow forward if we want, from the hips, no rounding of the back. We should feel that stretch up the inner thighs, backs of the legs. And then on our inhale, let's bring the body up. Give your knees a little wiggle as needed. So I want us to do our gentle twist before we move around and start countering some of those forward folds with some gentle back bending. So at this point, you can sit in your cross-legged position, crossing at the ankles or the shins, heel to heel. Move the flesh out of the way. Find your sit bones. Pull that belly in, sit up tall, ears over shoulders, fingertips floating out beside the hips. Let's turn our palms up to the ceiling. Take a nice deep breath in through the nose, reaching our arms up. And then on our exhale, we're going to rotate and twist to our right. Fingertips can float down towards the opposite knee. Continue to rotate all the way up through the spine to the crown of the head, peek behind the body. Inhale, bring everything back up to center. Keep this length. Exhale, rotate to the left. Vertebra by vertebra, up the spine, the neck, peek behind you. The inhale will pull us all the way back up, and we'll go one more time to each side. Exhaling, nice way to release the muscles of the back. Nice deep breath in and up. And one more, bring it up. We'll meet on the inhale with the arms reaching up, palms touching. Exhale to our center. So let's make our transition to tabletop now. You can get there however you like. Rearrange your space. Set up a nice strong foundation, spreading those fingers wide. Keeping the hands as broad as the shoulders. Press into the ground. Stack those knees under the hips. Tops of the feet can be flat or the toes can be tucking. Some flexion and extension here. So on the inhale, relax the belly. Lift and lengthen from the tailbone to the crown of the head. On the exhale, drawing that belly in, pushing into the ground, and tucking the tailbone under, chin to chest. Follow that breath, inhaling to our gentle back bend. Exhaling into our flexion. Any other little movements that might feel good in our cat-cows today? Loosening up the hips, making space all the way up and down the spine. Let's come to neutral position and let's just visit our child's pose for a couple breaths to give our hips and low back another stretch. So knees wide, touch those toes together. Sink those sit bones to the heels. Continue extending your fingertips forward for a deeper stretch for the shoulder. Relax the belly, heart, and head into the ground, or stack those hands or a prop under the forehead if it doesn't easily touch tonight. Smooth, deep breath in and out through the nose. One more breath. Next inhale floats the head up and the body back up, coming back into tabletop. So from here, let's walk ourselves more towards the back of our yoga mat, tuck those toes under. We'll do a little bit of our low flow just to get some movement in our body, and then we'll pause to do some of our back bending. So we'll walk our hands about one hand's distance forward. On the inhale, we're gonna glide forward into a kneeling plank, shoulders over wrists. Nice strong core, low bellies in, tails tucking, good. Exhale, we'll take our bow. You can pop your palms up so that you give your wrists a break. The head doesn't need to touch the ground. Inhaling, extend forward, stay strong. Exhale, take that bow. And since we're doing these, you might add a little bit of our upper body strengthening. We haven't done these in a while. So it's really important we don't collapse the spine. On the exhale, we bend at the elbows, little half chaturanga. Inhale, straighten the arms. Exhale, taking a bow if we need that extra break. The inhale takes us to kneeling plank. The head stays in line with the spine. Exhale, the elbows bend. Strengthening, toning those triceps, upper back muscles. Exhale, bow. Let's do that one more time. Doesn't have to be a big movement. It can be a tiny micro bend at the elbows. Good. Now the next time we come forward, that's the one we're going to take down onto our belly. Now you can try to go as slow as possible. That'll really tone and strengthen the backs of those upper arms and the shoulder girdle. Once we come down to the ground tonight, point the toes, relax the feet out. The feet can be wider than the hips if we take care of the low back, or you may bring the toes and heels to touch. Tonight, we're going to stack our hands, one hand on top of the other, underneath our forehead, and let your elbows turn out. So we're coming just into a relaxed prone position. So your heels can fall out, whether they're closer together or wider apart. One hand is on top of the other, palms down, and the forehead is resting on the hands. We'll take a breath or two here. We're going to give our hips a little wiggle side to side. So we're going to do these gentle cobras, bhujangasans. These are a really nice way to tone and strengthen our back, but from a little bit more gentle of approach doesn't mean that we're not getting all that purposeful strengthening. And it's a nice little work for our brain as well because we alternate. I'm just going to move myself in case anyone wants an extra little visual. So I'm going to turn to face forward here. So doesn't matter which hand you have on top because we're going to be alternating. But at this point, I want you to energize down through the feet. So you will be pressing into the tops of the feet now. You can give your glutes a little bit of a squeeze. To start, we just lift the head. So on the inhale, float the head up. Now keep your gaze down. We're not trying to look forward. We're not jamming our cervical vertebra in the back of our neck. Your neck stays long. And then on the exhale, lower the head down. Switch which hand is on top. You're always switching the hands. Inhale, lift just the head. So squeeze to those back muscles. Keep your gaze down so that the neck stays long. Exhale, lower. Switch hands, opposite hand on top. One a little bit more. Next, inhale, glue that top hand to your forehead. Lift the head, the hand and the elbow will come up. Exhale, lower. Switch hands, opposite hand on top. Inhale, glue that hand to the forehead. So as the head lifts, the hand stays with the forehead, the elbow will come down. Alternate hands. You can keep going one hand at a time. If we're ready for it, glue the hands together, glue them to the forehead. And when you inhale to lift up, the head, the hands, and the elbows lift. Exhale down. Switch hands. So every time you come down, you switch the hands. Every inhale, you lift up, whether it's just the head, one hand to the forehead, or both hands to the forehead. Squeeze the muscles of your back. Use your glutes as supporting characters. Energize all the way down the legs. Press into the tops of those feet. Good. Use that breath. Maybe you do a couple double hands and you realize you need to go back to a single hand. That's fine. I want us to do 2 more, so we'll balance ourselves out. So after you've done 2 more, you've gone side to side one more time. Exhale, come down and relax. So let your heels flop out, relax the buttocks, give your hips a little wiggle. If it's more comfortable for your neck, you can always turn your head to one side and rest your temple on your hands instead of the forehead. Take an abdominal breath. So as you inhale, inflate the belly will push into the ground, and that will translate to the muscles of the low back, helping them stretch. Exhale, relax. So we're going to take it up into our more traditional Bhujangasana now. So at this point, slide the hands underneath the shoulders. Glue all 5 fingers together. Squeeze your elbows in towards the rib cage. Energize down the legs into the tops of the feet. Kiss the shoulder blades together. Stretch the chin forward. Inhale, breathing. Squeeze the back muscles. Now we're going to hold and breathe tonight. So we should have warmed these muscles up. Squeeze your glutes. Pull the shoulder blades down the back, elbows in. A little bit more. We'll lift the hands up from the ground. Keep squeezing. Crown of the head extending forward. A little bit more. Shalabhasana, those arms beside the body. Palms will face down. We're reaching to our heels. Tone and strengthen the legs, the whole back of the body. Keep breathing. And then our Ardha Shalabhasana, next inhale. Let's squeeze our whole right side. Fire up that buttock, that hamstring. Lift the right leg from the floor. Exhale it down. Inhale, squeeze and lift the left leg from the floor. Exhale it down. Repeat 1 leg at a time, or those of us that would like, Purna Shalabhasana. The whole body's lifting up. Squeeze, tone, strengthen, breathe it in. Next exhale, we could turn our head to one side, gently flop the body to the ground, palms up, heels flop open, relax and breathe. Little heart racing action, absolutely. Those poses energize the body. They compress our adrenal glands. If the head is turned, 1 breath, turning the head the opposite direction. Chin forward, hands underneath the shoulders, energize through the feet, tighten up the glutes. Inhale, breathing, Bhujangasana. Pull those shoulder blades down the back. Now this time, slide your elbows straight forward into our Sphinx pose. So this is a little bit bigger of a back bend, but a little bit more gentle. We don't need to be tightening our muscles here because our forearms are doing the work. Start by knifing the pinky edge of the hands into the mat. The palms will be facing each other. Remember, if we turn our hands in, the webbing between the thumb and the index finger should be able to take hold of the elbow creases. The feet are still flopped open. The buttocks is completely relaxed. So I'm not using those muscles. I'm using my upper body muscles. Press the forearms into the floor. Drag your elbows in towards the body. They're not going to go anywhere, but we are trying to pull our torso, our spine and upper body forward and up so that we are decompressing the spine, stretching the abdominal muscles, a little bit of toning and strengthening for the upper back, but let the hips and the legs be relaxed and heavy. Sphinx pose, take a nice deep breath in. On the exhale, a little release for the neck. Just peek over the right shoulder here. See how far you can see. Inhale, bring the head back to neutral. Exhale, peek over the left shoulder. See how far you can see. Inhale back. One more time to each side with the breath. Inhale back to center. I'm going to give us one more option tonight. If this feels good and this is enough for us tonight, just hold in Sphinx pose, continuing to extend and lengthen the crown of the head forward and upwards. We can try to come into what is called seal pose. Now this will be a little bit more compression and strengthening for the back. You flip your palms down to the ground and extend them about one hand's distance forward, and then you press into your hands. At this point, you need to energize your glutes, the legs, and press the tops of the feet into the floor. But I still want to keep the length. Just don't jam yourself backwards and jam into that lumbar spine. But this is definitely going to take us into a lot more extension. Choose wisely. Big breath in. On the exhale, we'll come back down to our elbows, out of seal pose if we were lifted. We'll all flare our elbows back open, stack the hands, and either rest your forehead or a temple on your hands. Relax the heels out, give your hips a little wiggle, take a big belly breath. Turn the head the opposite direction for one more big belly breath. And since we're here, this is going to be a little bit of a twist. It might even be a little bit of extension of a back bend. We're going to do a nice big opening for the front of our chest and our shoulder. So at this point, take your right hand and reach it up from your right shoulder. So the arm is flat to the floor, the palm is down. And you might need a little extra cushion underneath the head. I just reached for my towel here. I'm gonna take my towel. I sometimes just kind of like my head to fall back a little bit, but we'll see. So right arm is stretched straight up from our shoulder. Palm is down to the floor. I'm going to take my left hand in front of my left shoulder, and I'm going to start pushing down with my left hand and rolling onto my right side. So the right arm is now behind me. Now you can let your left knee fall forward to the ground so that leg's kind of helping support the body. We can stack our left leg on top of the right leg. It's a little bit of a balancing act. We can try to step our left foot behind the right leg. The left knee will pull up to this, point up to the ceiling. You can try to take your right knee up to the ceiling so that the knees look like they're in bridge pose. Big stretch for the front of that right shoulder. Another option is to reach the left arm up. Let the left arm fall behind the back, and at this point, you would turn your right palm up and see if you can interweave all 10 fingers. Take one more breath. Inhale the left arm up. Exhale, bring the left hand back down to the ground. Roll back down onto the belly. Stack those hands. Relax the forehead or turn the head the opposite direction. Just take a quick break before we do the other side. And let's stretch the left arm now, straight up from the shoulder. The palm is down. Right hand presses into the ground in front of the right shoulder. And you start to roll onto your left side. Now you can stay more forward. You can drop the right knee down in front of the body so you're not as far onto that left arm as you want. Stack the legs. Or try to place the right foot behind the body. The knee will point up to the ceiling. You might even be able to get that left knee to point up, taking it a step further. Head can be supported as needed. And then if it's an option, reach the right arm up to the ceiling. And then we can take that right arm behind us, turn the left palm up, and maybe we interweave the 10 fingers. Maybe we don't. Don't force it. Wherever we are, try one more breath. Inhale, right arm up. Exhale, we'll unwind out of the pose. So we'll bring the hand back down, roll back down, stretch the legs out. Once we're on our belly, stack the hands, pause in neutral prone position. And then we're going to take our chin forward. The hands come back underneath our shoulders. Tuck the toes. Now it's going to be really important to pull our inner belly away from the floor like there's hot coals. So you really, really need to squeeze and tone those lower abdominal muscles. We'll push into the floor and carefully bring our body up. Let's come into tabletop first and start off with some tiny little baby cat-cows. So on the inhale, a little baby back bend. And especially this cat stretch, go easy. So tuck and round. So we're going to start countering some of that back bending. Inhale to our back bend. This might seem pretty easy at this point because we just did some extension. So on the exhale and that rounding and flexion, don't overdo it on the first one. Let your muscles start to stretch a little bit. Now, if we want to take it back to a child's pose to give our low back a bigger stretch, go for it. You can sit back on those heels. And then when we're ready, we're going to spread our fingers, hands wide, tuck our toes under, and lift ourselves upside down into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Go ahead and give your heels a little pedal side to side. Opening up the eyes of the knees. Try to keep your low back nice and level here. Press the ground away from the body, but keep the neck long. Drishti can be towards the belly button if we need a little bit more stretch for the neck. And then let's let those heels sink towards the ground, just pausing in stillness for a moment, stretching out the whole back, getting some blood flow towards the head. Next inhale, we will look forward and baby step our feet to our hands, hands to our feet. If you want to do some big forward folding, you can stay in Uttanasana, reaching the fingertips, releasing the shoulders, dropping the head. If that's a little bit much, or we modify, we know our modifications, bending the knees, resting elbows or hands, and we can still get some release that way. Keep the belly pulling in. And then tonight, let's all walk our hands up to our thighs, bend the knees, tuck the chin, and inhale. We're going to round it up. Inhale, 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 stack the spine. Big breath in to come up to standing. Give our shoulders a little purposeful shrug here. Exhale, let the shoulders fall back down away from the ears. Feet should be parallel to each other. Standing in Tadasana. Let's turn our palms forward tonight. Spread the fingers. We can pick up those toes, spread the toes. That will just encourage a little bit more heart opening as well. And then as usual, we'll take a few rounds of our palm tree pose, reaching upwards. You can draw that nice big circle all the way overhead. Bringing the palms to touch and exhaling down. And then when we're ready, we'll add those feet. So inhale, draw that big circle, float the heels up. Exhale. 2 more. Little extension takes the gaze up, and it will also challenge our balance. After our last one, we'll meet with the hands in front of the heart and the heels down. So tonight, let's open the feet a little wider than our hips. We're going to do the more gentle version, and we do this pose a lot, but we can also think of this as a preparatory pose for Ardha Chandrasana or half moon pose. So we'll practice our star pose. Let's lean into our right foot. The right leg is our pillar. It pushes through the floor. This allows that left leg to get light. So we should be able to lift and lower those toes. Nice and soft, just a little floating balancing tonight. And why sometimes I think of this as a preparatory pose, if we start activating that left foot, reaching the arms up into our V. If we were to try to tip to one side, we kind of be bringing our body into that half moon pose. Our bottom leg is usually in a different position, but this kind of gives us a little bit of the element, toning and strengthening the side body, moving ourselves around in this lateral space. So if you want a little bit more, you can kind of play with that. If we need to turn the volume down in our practice tonight and be a little softer, we can be softer. Good, I love it. Good job. Wherever we are, one more big breath in. The exhale, we'll try to land as softly as possible. We can be in a little wide standing mountain pose. Let the arms float down. Keep the focus, turn the palms forward, stand nice and tall. Try to equalize the weight through the feet. Inhale, arms wide and up. Exhale to our center. Lean it to the left. Push that left foot through the floor. When you push down, you should feel this get nice and strong and lift up. And then this side gets light and lifted. But it's that pushing down into the floor. And then once we start to feel that little lifting action, we can float it out there. We want a little bit more. Flex the foot, spread the fingers and toes, reach up in 4 directions. If you are playing with that little leaning to one side, I just want you to be really mindful of our backs. Keep that low belly pulling in. You can kind of move in that lateral space. Maybe it's a little bit in the arms. That takes a lot of toning and strengthening to the side. Glutes should be active. Good. Or soft. Wherever we are, one more big breath in. And our next exhale, again, we try to land nice and soft and easy. Right into Tadasana. Keep the focus. Turn the palms forward, ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips. Big breath in. Let's reach it wide all the way up. Look up to those thumbs for a little bit more extension. Exhale, bring the palms to touch, hands to heart. So we're going to bring it right back down to the ground tonight because I do want to do some of these restorative poses. So if we've moved around, let's find ourselves back towards the front of our yoga mat, standing with our feet parallel to each other. One more time. Big inhale, big circle, a little bit more back bending, drishti to those thumbs. On the exhale, bend those knees, hinge from the hips, and you may take this as far as you'd like down into your forward fold. Remember to keep the legs strong, the belly's in. Try to release the shoulders, the head and neck if you're further into the pose. Next inhale will bring us into our halfway lift. So hands to shins, give those upper back muscles a nice big squeeze. We should feel them by now. And then on the exhale, bend the knees, plant those hands, and let's take a nice big step back, 1 foot at a time. And let's end up in our plank pose tonight. Shoulders over wrists, nice strong body, pull the belly in, equal weight in the hands. And then let's drop the right knee down to the ground right underneath the hip. Slide the right foot out off to the long edge of the mat. Press into the right hand, coming to the instep of the left foot, stacking the hips and the shoulders. And again, visiting, or not tonight, but we've been doing this pose, a modified side plank, also a modified Ardha Chandrasana. So a little bit more lateral extension. We'll reach the left arm over the ear, maybe even arch it a little bit. If we want more strengthening, left arm up, squeeze your left side, left foot flex, lift the left leg up. So we're still creating that muscle memory in our body. Again, wherever we are, one more big breath in. On the exhale, we'll want to bring the foot down. We'll want to bring the hand back down. Take your time to unwind. So we got to restack the knees under the hips. Let's end up back in tabletop instead of plank so that we can do a little baby cat-cow. And then let's stretch one foot back at a time, back to full plank pose. So let's come back to some toning, strengthening just for a moment. Press into the earth, body parallel to the floor. Be mindful where the head is in space. Inhale. Exhale, left knee underneath the hip. Slide the top of the left foot out slightly. Press through that left hand, coming to the instep of the right foot. Stack the hips, the shoulders, reach those right fingertips up to the ceiling. So our left side should be pulling up away from the ground. Lateral extension brings the right arm over the ear, palm faces down to the ground, stretching that whole side, the waist, the rib cage. More strengthening, right arm up, squeeze the right side, abductors, glute. Keep that foot flexed. Hover it parallel to the floor. Is my neck long? My gaze can be down, forward, or up to that top thumb. Big breath in. Exhale, reverse out of the pose. Instep, look down, hand down, roll through those hips. We'll end up back on our knees, tabletop. Once you're there, take a couple cat-cows. Neutral position, we'll revisit a child's pose. We can keep the feet and knees touching this time, sinking the hips to the heels, bowing the head to the ground. Hands back to the feet, especially because we just did some planks, so that will help release the wrists. One more breath. And then bring the hands under the shoulders, tuck the chin. Inhale, let's round it up, one vertebra at a time. Once we're upright, we'll shift our weight over to either hip. We're gonna have to move some things around, so don't worry about that right now, which side we're on. So we are going to move ourselves into this prone twist. We did this last week, I believe. We're gonna want some support to lay down on with our belly. It's a little different approach to a twist, so it's a little practice for our brain to kind of wrap around it, but once we're in it, it should feel quite nice. You might be okay with just one pillow. I'm gonna take 2 pillows tonight. If you get really big pillows, you might want one pillow and then a blanket or something like that, so you can adjust the height here. It's always better to start a little higher and then take stuff away if you don't need it. You're gonna take your props to the back of your mat or to one side of your mat. You might also want an additional smaller blanket or towel that we add just as additional cushion in between the legs, because some of us will get into bone on bone. It's just not that comfortable. Tonight, to start, I want us to all face away from our props once they're set up and bring our feet forward. So it's gonna look like we're about to lean back on those pillows, but we're not. So this will help us all move in the same direction. So from here, we're gonna let our knees fall over to the left, like windshield wipers. And you are gonna come on to the left hip. So let your right hip come off the ground. And I want you to face towards the left side of your yoga mat. If that means you're facing away from the screen and you need to flip your props to the other side so you can do that, or just listen. So you should be sitting on your left hip. And I want you to lift that hip up and come even more onto the outside of that left hip. So your body is now facing more the long edge of your yoga mat. Now the right leg will be kind of stacked on top of the left, but the inner ankle or calf will kind of be in the well of the left foot. This is where some of us will want to take an additional blanket and just place it between those lower legs so it's a little bit more comfortable. At this point, we might need to slide our props towards us. We are going to want a little bit of space here, but again, we're going to be adjusting that depending where we are with our body. So now the trick is to start turning towards the left even more. Bring your hands down to the ground. You're almost trying to frame your props. You're going to lift your left hip up again and come even more to the outside of the left hip, even more to the top or the outer left thigh. Right hip should be coming up away from the ground now. If you need to pull your props in closer, do so. And at this point, we're bringing our belly and our chest towards our props. The head might not turn, but my hands are framing my props, and I'm going to start to walk down and bring my body down. It should feel quite nice. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. It might not be for everybody. You might need more props, you might need less. If you feel like you need to adjust your hips, lift them up and slide that left hip away from you even more. So you're even more to the upper outside of the left glute and hip. You might be able to hug your props and slide your hands underneath. And if we think it's okay for our body and our neck, you can continue to rotate through the head and turn your head all the way to the left so that you're resting on your right ear, taking that twist all the way up the spine. We will hold this pose for several deep breaths. Try to let go and just relax. Let's try to take one more big full breath in the pose. Now to come out, there's no rush. If the head is completely turned into the twist, we need to carefully bring our gaze straight back forward. Press into the elbows, slide your hands closer to the body, press into the hands and start to peel the body away from the props. So we're coming up, 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 up. Walk your hands in, walk your hands in. Once you're more upright, we're gonna unwind. So we're gonna float the right knee up, scooch onto our sit bones, float the left knee up, and we should end up right where we started with our back facing our props, our feet nice and wide, weight in the hands, and just give your knees a little rock side to side. So we're gonna go to the other side. If you use that extra cushion, bring it over to the right. We're gonna let the knees fall over to the right. Once the knees have fallen over to the right, you are going to bring your hands over to the right. You want your left hip to start to come up off the ground at this point. The left leg will be on top of the right leg. That lower calf can be in the well or the arch of the bottom foot. Add your extra cushion if you want it. You're going to press into the ground so that you can lift your hips up so that you can come more to the outside of the right hip and outside of the right thigh. And then the hands will walk around. So now my hands are facing towards the back of my mat and I'm framing my props. I might need to lift my hips up again so that I can get more on the outer right thigh and hip. Once you're there and the belly and the chest are facing your props, you can slide them further in or out depending on what we need and start to walk the hands forward and down. Now the head can stay in the same direction as the knees. If we feel like we have the ability, continue the twist up through the neck, turning the head to the right, resting on the left ear. We might need to continue to do little adjustments in the hips and the legs and the feet till we feel like we're comfortable. But then try to just press that pause button, breathe and relax, maybe wrapping the arms underneath the props or reaching them forward. And then we're trying to let the weight of the body go so that we're not holding on to any tension, any tightness in the muscles. Completely surrendering the weight of the body over the props to the ground. And we will try to hold again on this side for several deep breaths. Try to take one more full breath on this side. After that breath, we'll start to slowly peel the body up. If you've rotated the head the full twist, release the head, gaze straight forward. Start to slide your hands underneath the shoulders so we can push into the ground. Bringing the body up, you should still be facing your props, walking the hands back towards the body. Once we're seated upright, we'll unwind, floating our left knee up, right knee up, scooching around back on our sit bones, giving our knees a little rock side to side. So tonight, I'm gonna give us an option. We already have these props behind us. I kind of moved myself way off my mat, so I'm gonna slide them a little further back. We can do a modified staggered Supta Baddha Konasana for final relaxation tonight, where we'll give ourselves a little lift and elevation, a little bit of a gentle back bend. If you want to come flat down to the floor and elevate your legs, or you feel like you need to do some other type of position before we move into final Shavasana or relaxation, you're welcome to. If you want to do this modified Baddha Konasana, I have 2 pillows. Basically, we want to get to the point where either you're staggering your bolsters or your pillows, and what I'm going to do is slide my top one so the short end's on the ground and some of it's up here, so I'm at this angle. If you don't have 2 pillows and maybe you're working with a pillow and a blanket, you can take the blanket, tuck it under, and bring it under the head of the pillow. So again, you're at an angle. If you have bolsters and you have your yoga blocks and you want to set up the more traditional version where you stagger your blocks and put your bolster at an angle, you're welcome to do that. But what we're looking for is heart opening, a little bit of extension for the spine, and definitely support for the whole upper half of the body. And then the legs may extend straight forward and over a rolled blanket or pillow. If you want to take the more traditional version and let the knees fall open, again, you might want to have towels, blankets, or yoga blocks. So I'm going to use a combination of my blanket and then 2 of these, so they're about equal in height. I might have to play with that a little bit. Bringing them to the outsides of my mat, so that when I bring the soles of my feet to touch, My low back is supported, mid back, upper back. I can let my knees fall open, but they will have support here with my blanket. So I'm not overstretching my inner thighs or groin muscles. If this is comfortable, we drop the arm bones down beside the body with the palms up. And ideally, the elbows and the backs of the hands are able to touch. So if you're lifted up a little bit higher and your elbows are kind of dangling, you could add support for them. But we should feel length up the spine and opening through the front body. Definitely an opening through the chest and the heart. And that little bit of lift for our spine gives us that supported extension. The head should feel completely supported as the legs. But if that's not working for us tonight, or we want to move into a different restorative pose, we're welcome to do that. Good time of year to have extra blankets to place on top of the body, or sweaters, socks. So really getting ourselves cozy here. Good. So once we've all figured out where we want to be, we've rearranged ourselves in our space, let's start to settle in. Continuing with that same practice of letting go. At first, purposefully moving through the body, consciously letting go of tension and tightness. Soften all the little muscles across the face. Relax the forehead, the brow, and the eyebrow center. The eyes sink into the sockets. Poof the cheeks up with air, swallow a couple times. And then with the lips softly touching, release the tongue and lower jaw to gravity. Relax the throat. Soften the heart and the chest. Release the weight of the shoulders, the elbows, and the backs of the hands into the ground. Fingertips curling up naturally. Relax all the way down the back, vertebra by vertebra. Relax around the waist. Relaxing the abdominal muscles and all of the internal organs. Maybe noticing a subtle rise and fall of the belly with the breath. And then relax the space around the hip sockets, the inner thighs. Feel the weight of the legs as we relax from the hips to the knees, knees to ankles. Noticing where the feet are connecting to each other. Relaxing the soles of the feet and all of the toes. Softening and relaxing the whole body. The breath becomes quiet, easy, and calm. If the mind wanders, we gently bring it back to this peaceful breath. And we give ourselves permission to completely relax, to feel a sense of surrender and to sink into Shavasana. So we'll slowly start to come back to our breath. And then gently start to breathe life back into the body. You can give the toes a little wiggle. Wiggle the fingertips. Rock the head side to side. So if the knees are still open wide in Baddha Konasana, let's float those knees up towards the ceiling, planting the feet. We can slide one leg at a time down the middle of the mat. And those arms can actually reach up to the ceiling and overhead. Even if we're on a support of a pillow, just be mindful of the shoulders. Point and flex the feet a couple times. Spread those fingers and toes. So if we're more elevated and we're seated up more at an angle, we can sit straight up from this pose by bending one knee into the body, holding behind that thigh or the shin bone, and then pulling ourselves up out of the pose. If we are flattered on the floor on our props, you may walk your feet in, hug your knees in, and roll to one side, pausing on the side of the body for a moment. So it will depend on what position we took for our relaxation. So if you're flatter to the floor, take those extra steps to hug the knees in, to rock the back out, to pause in sleeping baby pose. If you sat straight up from Baddha Konasana, just come into your seated position and pause there for a moment. Those of us on our side, take that top hand to the floor in front of the chest, press into the ground to bring the body up. And we'll all catch up in any comfortable seated pose up on our sit bones, where we'll take just a couple more breaths together tonight. So we'll mind our space as usual. We'll sit up nice and tall through the crown of the head, floating the arms out beside the body. Turning those palms up to the ceiling. Let's take a nice deep breath in, floating the arms up, reaching up and gathering up everything we need for the rest of our evening. On the exhale, turn the palms back out, float the fingertips all the way back down to the ground. And as we breathe out, we will let go of any other junk we do not need this evening. And one more time, nice deep breath in. Float the arms up to the ceiling. We'll bring those palms to touch, exhaling our hands down to Anjali Mudra in front of the heart, humbly bowing our head down to our heart to honor and thank ourselves, our bodies, each other, and anyone else that made it possible for us to practice our yoga together tonight. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace. So I thank you all so much, as usual, for all of your support, your patience,